You help to oversee a system covering hundreds of thousands of retirement plans and trillions in assets. What do you think the industry gets right that people don't talk about enough?
I think the industry gets lots right. Again, I have dealt with so many different uh, organizations, stakeholders who are, I think that we often, as with anything,
Hmm.
it's so easy. It's a natural thing for people to focus on the things that are not going perfectly well
Hmm.
versus the incredibly like huge percentage or part of things that's going extraordinarily well. So when you think about the fact that that while yes, we need to have more people engaged, saving all of that, the fact that we have a voluntary system that
Hmm.
employers do not have to offer, and that so many people do have access to retirement benefits, specifically talking about retirement benefits now, but that
Hmm.
so many people do have retirement benefits and are accessing those benefits and are, leading themselves and being led, together with having the support of this industry that
Hmm.
is leading them towards financial security in retirement, that can't be understated, right?
Hmm.
And I, prefer not to have um, or to kind of like give a lot of air to the conversations or the narrative that the system is broken, right?
Hmm.
I don't think we should be taught. It's a very defeatist attitude, right? And it's not
Right.
recognizing the good that is happening. Um, at this and it's and it's just a difficult if someone comes to you and tells you your car is totaled versus like you can you got like there are ways that you can improve to make your car work better,
Hmm.
and there's certain parts of your car that might be outdated now and you need to replace. So similar with the retirement system, there are certain things that we just have to come to accept the fact that things need to change and we need
Hmm.
to change ways of delivery. We need to innovate. We need to recognize that maybe parts of the system aren't working as well as they should be. At the same time, I think that we can't get too complacent with like and patting ourselves on the back saying like
Right.
we've done such a great job. Sometimes I sit at conferences and I'm listening to all of these various conversations about financial wellness or auto enrollment or the changes in Secure 2.0, increasing access, all of these various things that are happening out there, and everybody's like
Yeah.
yay, we're doing such a good job. However, like I think trying to get to a point where we're saying like we're doing a good job and there's still so much more that can be done, and there are people who are, that access to a plan is, not enough. And like, why is like what's happening? So trying to focus on, not being negative about it and not saying like everything is so horrible and so many people are being left behind, but recognizing that, that we are progressing in a positive direction, but that
Hmm.
there are areas where we need to be thinking, we need to be really thinking long and hard about are things working? How should we shift? Who is being left behind and why?
Hmm.
Why aren't people accessing? Is access to a plan enough? Um, and for employers who aren't offering plans, like what is it that's stopping them from doing so? And like, how can we really, in a meaningful way, be talking with either employers who aren't accessing plans, employees who are not, taking advantage of plans that are available to them, like, kind of getting out of our own heads sometimes about why we think things aren't, like working as well as we would like them to, or what improvements might be working, might be beneficial to people. And, instead talking with the folks themselves who have to deal with this on a day to day.
Hmm.
But I think, trying to look at this as more of a glass half full rather than a glass half empty,
Right.
but not, thinking like should be popping champagne at every moment and our job is done here. So.
Well, okay, so that leads me, you kind of touched on this, but do you have anything specifically where you think we're falling short in closing the gaps in savings and coverage?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, one is that there are, we keep seeing that there are like certain demographics of people, whether it's,
Hmm.
types of workers, people who live, again, like in certain areas of the country, people of certain ages, people of certain genders, people of certain races, like people, all
Hmm.
of these various things we see, and like how much are we I don't think that we're doing enough um, to really be talking directly with those people
Hmm.
about what is stopping them, and I feel like this happens in so many different areas, not just in the retirement world, but
Hmm.
there are, we are very fortunate to have lots of very, again, bright, dedicated, well-intentioned people who work in the retirement industry and genuinely want to try to solve problems.
Hmm.
But we don't have all of the best answers. We may think this makes perfect sense, but I think there's too much of a disconnect in not talking with workers themselves and not talking with like employers themselves about like what's holding them back and where they're and what could they really use and what will like change the need. So I there needs to be more of a of a connection with like real
Hmm.
world life, and even in communicating like the good things that are happening out there. One thing when I was at EBSA, I would always say to my staff, like, my dad is, that you use my dad as an example. Like like we need to explain whatever we're doing in a way that my dad, and this isn't, it's
Hmm.
not like, but like for like pick John Q number whatever. How is that person going to like read about what we did and think that like that was meaningful to them? And I think
Hmm.
it's the same thing for a plan sponsor. A plan sponsor can introduce like all sorts of different enhancements to their plan pro offerings. We hired this. If you have one of your employees that says, you know, that means nothing to me, and it's either because I don't understand it or I don't appreciate how it is helpful to me, or it's actually not helpful to me at all.
Hmm.
And it's not helpful to most people, and it looks pretty that you did that, but so I think the more that it's trying to get down to like the practical, we lose sight of like that practical, is this really helping anyone, right?
Hmm.
So, I think that's an area in which we have, like just trying to do a better job at thinking about in real life for real people,
Hmm.
how outside of the conferences where we're all a little bit of a it's a little bit of an echo chamber talking about, how things work. Like what does this mean for anybody on the outside, and how can we be making it better? And I think too, like in the financial, like what does financial wellness mean? Like
Right.
I'm all for financial wellness, but like what does that mean? Like and I think a lot of it's one of these things that, again, would never tell people to abandon their financial wellness programs. It's not important, but I fear that sometimes it sounds like something great that you're doing, but how much does the plan sponsor really understand about like what is financial wellness? Like when
Hmm.
is a person financially well? How do we help
Right.
make them financially well? Um, and I guess the other just kind of attachment to that is that, having when I was at the Department of Labor, worked a lot on the health side in mental health benefits, and trying to improve access to mental health benefits.
Hmm.
And then also working on retirement and access to retirement, equity in retirement. It's so clear that there's such a connection between a person's mental health and their
Yeah.
financial health. And there's not enough of bringing those two things together and thinking about just the emotional, you know, people, a lot of the reasons why people don't think about retirement is because what happens when you retire? You're getting old and eventually, you won't be here. People don't want to think about those things. Or
Right.
people have financial stressors that, or, mental health issues that they might be dealing with, or the financial stressors are affecting their mental health. I think that there's not enough of that kind of looking at the person as a whole person and
Hmm.
thinking, how do we best serve that person, in all aspects. So,
Yeah.
we need to get, a little bit better at not working so much in our silos and
Yeah.
trying to come together to best serve the people that we're serving.
Yeah. Agreed. What role do you think the financial advisor should play in helping bridge the savings and coverage gaps?
I think that financial advisors can be a person who in if we're talking about like financial advisors and who are working with individuals,
Hmm.
right? It can be, one of the most important resources to an individual in that, they can really be talking with a person and trying to look at that person as a whole person and not just
Hmm.
their retirement account or, the IRA that they service or like whatever piece of it that there may be, but just trying to get to know that person as a whole person and trying to find out like, well, like tell me about you and what are your goals,
Hmm.
what's important to you. Do you have a sick child, or a
Hmm.
child that has a medical condition that you're going to have to care for, for the rest of their lives? Do you have I don't know, like a very wealthy aunt who, is going, like what's going to happen in your life? And so that person can really be the financial advisor can be someone who can really like stand on the side of the person and help them,
Hmm.
help lead them through the various stages of their lives and so I think that they can play a very important role and trying to even if you're not if the financial advisor is not the one that's going to certainly solve all of those problems,
Hmm.
but helping have being someone who can at least guide someone towards, the financial advisor is likely to know about various things that the individual should be thinking about.
Hmm.
And, while you have to stay within your own lane and how you can help that individual person, being someone that the worker, the individual that you're working with, can look to as, kind of like a Sherpa that you can say,
Right.
like, I don't deal with this, but you should really talk with someone who does this. And, or, I don't deal with, but you should, like trying to be seen as the individual as someone who really, who they know like which part you play,
Hmm.
in that person's future planning. But are also looked to as someone who's a very critical part of that financial planning and and that they understand your value and um how you can help them and how you can again just kind of like empower that person to be making the right decisions on their own and understanding what the various options, whether they're investment types or, just
Hmm.
decisions to be made. So yeah, but I get that it's a tricky place to be because trying to balance too, explaining to a client like, where the lines begin and end and like
Uh-huh.
what they can and can't rely upon. So
Yeah. If you had a blank slate, what are one or two changes, whether it's policy or industry driven, that you think would move the needle faster?
hmm. Um, Let me think about that for a moment. I do think that um, if we could think more about uh, data that is available related to an individual saver, you
Mm-hmm.
know, data that you have a person and they have, their financial information that all different types of financial information that is out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bank accounts, the home that they may own, additional homes that they may own, student loans that they owe, like whether it's obligations or assets,
Mm-hmm.
everything tends to kind of be in all different places. And also just like understanding, again, the person from a holistic standpoint, what they need. And I've heard from so many people, in so many different areas, whether it's talking with record keepers or talking with advisors, or talking with HR people, plan sponsors, that there's a big desire to be able to have access to more information
Mm-hmm.
about a person so that they can serve the person in a more holistic way. And so one major change I think would be to recognize that and try to work together to find ways to responsibly open up some of those pathways of data so
Mm-hmm.
that people can, I'm talking about advisors being able to talk about other, options, but
Right.
an advisor may have a very, small lane of information that they have about this person and they, have no idea about the rest of it. And it's really, becomes so much up to the individual to tell you,
Mm-hmm.
about some of these other pieces. So, and I've talked about this in some other contexts that in when you think about your medical uh, information, pathways were opened so that, doctors could talk with each other's hospitals,
Yeah.
pharmacies, everybody. We don't have that same system set up in the more kind of financial and certainly retirement area or employer sponsored benefits area.
Mm-hmm.
And, while I definitely recognize that there are security issues and, you want to protect the individual at all costs, that there should be ways to make this so that we're not operating in all of these different silos. And that if we can, open up more of that so that people can have more information about the individual that you serve and be able to be talking with other people who are involved in that, then we'll be able to just serve the individual better. So I think that is one thing to try to address that and see how we can responsibly do that. I think the other thing, one other thing that's just kind of top of mind for me because of everything that has been happening um, the with the fiduciary rule,
Mm-hmm.
with what's happening with I guess more on what's happening with the whole discussion about alternatives in 401(k)s,
Mm-hmm.
and then ESG investments and anything that might come up as the either concern of the day or the new topic of the day, as far as types of investments and in retirement plans. I wish that I could just wave a wand and say, like, we have a regulation, we have a law. The law is ERISA. ERISA
Right.
has certain fiduciary duties, and we have a very basic regulation that says, like, these are your responsibilities, plan sponsor, to look at. And that when it comes to all of these different types of investments, like the your responsibilities remain the same and they
Mm-hmm.
don't change, like when you're talking about this type of investment or that type of investment. But and that all that we're going to do is try to, again, empower you to be able to make good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to say that you can't do this, and you can't do that, or you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do that. It's going to be with each things, with each type of investment we're looking at, just what do you need to know? What do you need to be asking questions about? How can possibly the industry be improved to better accommodate ERISA plans, retirement
Mhm.
advisors? Because right now, just having been a former practitioner and then now having coming out of regulation, it's just a constant problem of like the back and forth, and
Mhm.
also kind of inconsistent messaging because, if you're going to be told, and yeah, I mean, and this happens, it's not like one administration over another, but if you're going to be told that like, certain types of investments, we should be taking our thumb off the scale and letting people do what they want to do. But other kinds of investments, we're going to put the thumb like totally on the scale and tell
Mhm.
you what to do. Then, but that thumb may come off, in 4 years or maybe put back on or like what's a person to do? So I would
Right.
love for there to just be like, forget everything that everybody was saying about these various types of investments and which regulation applies. There's this one regulation
Yeah.
that applies to investments, and then there are these offshoots of guidance that, when it for any specific thing, these are things to watch out for, to ask about, that
Mhm.
whatever, when it might be the right thing to do, not the right thing to do, right thing for certain people. So that would be my magic wand. Let's just like start over.
I think we would all appreciate that, trust me.
Uh, yeah.
What do you see as the single biggest opportunity to close the coverage gap in America?
Hmm. Um, I think that as far as closing the coverage gap, I think one, the opportunities that are available, on the state level with,
Mhm.
some of these programs that that offer for employees being able to have some form of coverage. I mean, that is definitely an opportunity. I
Mhm.
also, I do think that in the world of PEPs, that if done correctly, if implemented correctly, and if particularly for small employers,
Mhm.
because I know, even for myself, having previously been a relatively small-ish employer who was trying to offer retirement benefits to, the employees of the firm, it is very daunting to take upon of all of these responsibilities on your own. So I
Mhm.
do think that that PEPs, can be a real game changer,
Mhm.
to be able to close that coverage gap. If again, if things can be done in a way that is responsible and that employers understand like what it's not a set it and forget it, and you don't have to worry about it. You've handed everything off to someone. But if things are established in a way that employers can feel that, it is something that, is way more manageable for them to undertake, and they
Mhm.
understand how it works, and they have professionals that they, can rely upon to guide them, then
Mhm.
that, hopefully um, will be very helpful. And again, I think the other part is, I know you told me one thing, but, I do think
Yeah.
another part of it is, um, trying to, again, really understanding like what the reasons for the coverage gap are and
Mhm.
why aren't people um saving more money, or why aren't employers offering retirement plans, like what are the things that are stopping them? And I know people have been asking these questions, but just continuing to ask these questions,
Mhm.
and I mean, trying to address the various problems that there are out there. But I guess that's what I would.
Okay. No, that's great. I really agree.
Hmm.
We've got to get more of these very small employers adopting plans, whether it's simple IRAs, whether it's PEPs, whether it's individual plans. Um, I would love to see that. And I also think, you know. making people more aware of the tax credits that are available because we, in practice, still see a lot of small employers, a lot of CPAs who are not aware of the tax credits, and a lot of small employers who are not aware. And then even when we set up a plan and tell them about the tax credits, they forget about them and their CPA doesn't know about them. So we're seeing a lot of those credits go unused. So
Hmm.
I think it's on us as an industry to keep just educating people as much as possible on the things that have been done to offset the cost for small employers to set up a plan.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that that is definitely true, to try to, because employers, I mean, their main job is going to be running their business.
Yeah.
And so unless you either have, employees who know enough to be able to really be um, you know, uh, trying to influence the employer, saying
Hmm.
this is important to me for you to, but they need to know enough to be asking for that, or employers and they're, the people that they work with to understand all of the various benefits that, offering a plan can provide to them,
Hmm.
aside from just having, employee goodwill and like treating your employees better, but
Hmm.
thinking of all of that. And then, also just on the employee side, trying to have people understand from a young age,
Yeah.
teaching them in high school or earlier about like compounding and just how taking like, even a small percent of your pay and put like how much that can help you, or and certainly like if your employer has an employer match,
Yeah.
just not walking away from those things. And, yeah, so I mean, I do think it's difficult. And I wonder too, even, because there's so much thrown at you when you first start a job and trying to absorb,
Hmm.
everything that is coming into your brain when you're coming in, and you may not be ready to make some of these decisions or understand everything at that point, but having, an employer, really be dedicated to not just saying like, and I don't mean to say this in a dismissive way to employers, but that it's not enough to just say, welcome, here's your
Right.
packet, join, and then never talk about it again.
Yeah.
And say, well, I offered them a plan, because to your point, the employer is not going to get the benefit of having that person in the plan, and the person is not going to have the benefit of being in the plan. So it's a constant, it's a constant conversation that has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you look ahead to this next chapter of your career, first tell us what you're doing and what
Hmm.
impact do you most want to have on the retirement system?
Yeah. So I'm working as an independent consultant. I have my own consulting firm, and through that firm, I am still a lawyer,
Hmm.
so I can still provide legal services, and I'm doing that with some plan sponsors on certain transactions. But I'm doing a wide number of things, from providing strategic policy advice on different types of entities who are looking for best ways to deal with the Department of Labor and EBSA on any given, issue that they may want some insider advice on how to best approach that, to dealing with individuals who might have an investigation open with EBSA, or who may be trying to obtain a prohibited transaction exemption, who might be looking for an advisory opinion, different ways in which I can be helpful to like
Hmm.
how to best position yourself for that. I am working as an independent fiduciary for a fund that needed some direction there. So again, like whether on an individual transaction or just to for terminated plans moving forward, talking about that. And I am working with some clients on providing training on
Hmm.
fiduciary issues or regulatory updates or how to work with departments. And, that part of it has been a lot of fun because whether it's something to be provided for, for your staff, internally or externally for clients to be able to understand, what's happening and how does it affect me? Because again, just having come from the outside of DC and outside of government world and perspective to then having been there and seen what happens within the system and like how people take advantage of it, how people are not taking advantage of it, and then coming out of it and trying to take all of that experience to
Hmm.
help people themselves be impactful and to succeed. Those are, different things that I am doing. So anyway, and I'm just definitely continuing to, speak at conferences, to go to conferences, and I get the best part of me getting information is, and sort of learning more how I can be impactful is by going to conferences or listening to webinars, but just taking in, I say I'm in sponge mode right now, just
Right.
taking it all in and listening to what people are saying and problems that people are having and where they face challenging challenges, and then trying to figure out for myself how I can be helpful to them. Whether it's great if people hire me, but even if, people just want to chat or help me point them in the right direction, anything like that. But anyway, it's been fun. It's evolving.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. For plan sponsors and advisors listening, what's one thing you would challenge them to do differently starting tomorrow?
I would challenge them to take a step back from kind of like what they are doing on a day to day and have been doing on a day to day as far as delivering benefits and their what's in their plan, what's in their investment structure, how they like just how they are operating on a day to
Hmm.
day, to take a step back and start thinking about it's difficult. I'm not going to say that this isn't a difficult task that I'm giving because I know that it's hard to just kind of get through the day to day,
Hmm.
but it is worth taking a step back and thinking about the various things that you do provide, the benefits that you provide, the people that you work with, how you deliver benefits, what your employees want, and like looking at these individual pieces with a fresh eye, like either trying to do it on your own or talking with someone else to get a different perspective and thinking about like, does that still work?
Hmm.
Should we be thinking about something in a different way? And even taking that to looking at your own, your plan document, and looking at like what do we actually do and offer here, and does it still make sense? But kind of
Hmm.
like, taking that step, taking, maybe like once a quarter,
Right.
if that's all that you can do, but saying like, I don't know, on the 15th of the third month, I'm always going to do this, and I'm going to take that step back and think about like, why are we really doing this? And
Hmm.
is it working? But just to challenge yourself to that. And because I do think that too often we all have very busy lives and lots of
Right.
things, but to take the time to do that. I guess, and because I can never just give you one answer, my second thing would be just to like also as part of that, like just revisit your governance system and
Hmm.
make sure that, you haven't like things haven't fallen by the wayside as far as like what you document, because at the end of the day, all of that is going to be the most important thing. Like, how did you get
Hmm.
to any decision? So making sure that from a governance standpoint, that is not forgotten as you go through all of the different changes and implementing things, and you know
Yeah.
that like your core governance structure is intact and strong, because that's going to be your best protection at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I love that taking the time to reevaluate your plan. Because I mean, small employers, they're busy, right? I mean, for our clients, we offer them the opportunity to sit down and review their plan as far as because we do compliance side.
Hmm.
So all we do is compliance, but we offer them the opportunity, like, let's sit down, let's look at your 5,500, let's look at your financial statements. And we can do that, in conjunction with the financial advisor. And the record keepers have so many reports now that they can give you to show you, like, what's your rate of participation. They can get it down to like this age group is participating at this level and this age group is participating at this level so that you can kind of see what your financial wellness of your participants looks like.
Hmm.
What does their savings look like? But so many of our clients are like, I don't have time for that. Just send me the report.
Hmm.
I'm going to file the 5,500 and we'll talk next year.
Right.
And so I agree, even if it's just once a year sitting down and reviewing, like, let's do a plan design review. Let's look at everything that Secure offered. Do we need those things? Is that just going to complicate things? Um, so I think that's great. I think that's great
Yeah. No, and
advice.
certain things like just on that note, I definitely would hear from plan sponsors that like there are paths that have been opened through Secure 2.0 that are voluntary. Like you don't
Hmm.
have to do these things, but they could be helpful.
Hmm.
And I would hear so often from plan sponsors that like there are so many things that I have to do that I
Yeah.
can't focus on the things that I don't have to do. But
Yeah.
when you look at some of those things, like for example, emergency savings accounts,
Hmm.
it could be that based on your employee population, that is the reason. Like if you talked with people and they said, I don't want to put money away because I am living, my financial situation is such that I'm
Hmm.
terrified that if there's an emergency, I'm not going to be able to access this money. And if you can
Yeah.
put something in there that will avoid, so that like if they need a new set of tires, they
Right.
can take out that money,
Yeah.
so yeah, so trying to, it's kind of like thinking, but again, I do not, I don't mean to make this, nobody is going to come at this and say like, come on,
Yeah.
you need to make time. I know it's difficult, but in the long run, it could work out, much better. And also sometimes looking at your appeals, like
Yeah.
I would always tell clients to like even if somebody is handling most of your benefit appeals, to make sure that you're getting reports and you're really paying attention to those reports. Like where are the appeals happening?
Hmm.
Because it could be that you have a lot of claims getting denied because the language isn't clear enough, or you're looking and saying, well, wait a minute, like my employees need this. Everybody's appealing for it. Everybody's putting in claims and they're getting denied.
Hmm.
And can we do something about that? Because that's something like I really want to be able to pay for. So like trying to find these little spots where you can take a deeper look into your plan and whether it's best serving both the company and the employees rather than just, getting into the spot that's so easy for all of us to get into where you're just going through the motions and filing, hopefully doing all your compliance stuff, checking all the
Right.
boxes, but at the end of the day, it's not serving anybody in the way it best can.
Right. No, I agree. And sitting down, because I know like service providers like us and like the financial advisor, we have access to a lot of information on things that are available throughout the industry that the client doesn't have access to. So like if you don't want to do emergency savings inside your plan, well, I know of a company called Sunny Day Fund who will do it
Hmm. Yeah, they're great.
outside of your
Exactly.
plan, right? If you don't want to do emergency savings, well, maybe you could do the emergency distribution that is
Hmm.
now allowed. Or, if your pain point is, I hate submitting contributions every pay period, I don't have time. Well, okay, let's talk about payroll integrators and how can we take that off your plate? And so
Hmm.
just sitting down once a year and talking to your service providers can like solve some of those pain points.
Hmm.
If you just take an hour to sit down and find out and discuss, okay, these are the problems I'm having, or this is what I see with my employees, and just
Right.
kind of brainstorm. So
Right.
I think
Well,
that's a
and
great point.
hopefully, like consultants will do more of like what you're talking about. That's kind of because what you're talking about is stepping away from the usual, like I need to talk to you about, talk with you about X, Y, and Z,
Right.
and kind of like using your wave a magic wand analogy and telling the client, telling the employer, if you could forget about everything that I've told you about how your plan works, whatever. If you could wave a magic wand and, be like having a plan that did things, like what are those things? Because it may be
Mhm.
that they don't know that those things are possibilities, like how can we make this better?
Yeah,
Um, but it is hard to
yeah,
take the time to do that, but I think in the long run, it's really helpful.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
I have so enjoyed this, but
No,
final
I've enjoyed this
question.
too. This is great.
What gives you the most optimism about the future of the retirement in America?
What gives me the most optimism is that there are um, that I have just really learned that there are so many people who are really, truly, genuinely dedicated to improving the system and and that are looking for ways to do that. And, it may be that sometimes we're not doing in the most efficient way, or we're not as, well guided as we should be, or, but that like at its core, just to have so many people who are, again, I keep using, but like smart, mission driven people with good intentions who want to truly see things get better
Mhm.
and and maybe need some more guidance and paths and ways to do that. But but there is there is it's a great community of people, and I think that like that is the most important thing. Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
there's a quote in there somewhere that I'm forgetting, but it's like, a group of well-intentioned people can change the world or something.
Yeah,
It's something like that. But, I mean, I think if you don't have that is what I'm most hopeful about, that I really have learned that, while there's always like bad apples everywhere, that
right.
the community is, by far made up of people who are really looking for change. And that,
Hmm.
if we just continue to go at it and don't settle for, that anything is good enough or we've tried hard enough,
Yeah,
that, we can continue to find answers to these to making the system better and better. So that's, I have, have faith in the people that make up this industry to just keep pushing it forward and not accept, that we're going to
yeah.
stand still. But yeah.
Yeah, my friends and I talk about all the time how lucky we are to have found an industry to work in where we change people's lives every day, but we also get to work with people who feel the same way we do and are passionate about it and want to change people's lives. And not only that, but it's a very collaborative industry. Like
Hmm.
everybody, it's more collaborative than I'm going to compete against you or you're going to steal my client. Instead, we're all coming together and lifting each other up to improve the industry and make everybody's lives better.
Hmm.
It's such a unique industry. It just is amazing to get to work in, and then to have, an organization like ARA who's pushing it all forward for us too is,
Hmm.
I mean, they're an amazing group of people to have the opportunity to work with too. So
Yeah.
totally agree. Totally agree.
No,
So lucky.
it's been, and I have definitely been very thankful and grateful to be benefiting my own self, like myself personally, because I came into this as like the Washington outsider who is
Yeah.
Lisa Gomez, coming from my own, and and I have met so many people and continue to be. I mean, this has been, a great thing for you and I to talk, but I do genuinely, feel that people are trying to, uh, are trying to lift each other up and
Hmm.
to, and to try to just make things work. And sometimes we all need a little help about how to get there. But yeah, no, so it has been wonderful. And also to keep each other accountable
Right.
along the
Right.
way, where it's like you think you're helping, but you're really not. Can we talk
Right.
about this? So sometimes
Yeah.
it takes your best friends tell you where you might have like fallen off the,
Yeah.
the best laid path. So yeah, but I do. I'm enjoying it. So
Well, good. Well, we're lucky
yeah.
to have you. So thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
thank you to everyone listening. We will have Lisa's contact information in the show notes. And if you have an idea that you want to share with our audience on how to help close the savings gap and the coverage gap that we have in America's retirement savings, please be sure to get a hold of me. I would love to have you on. And hopefully, we'll have you back next month listening in again. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shannon.